Hey everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to sew up the baby Logi, which is the miniature version of the Logi pouch. This is the full size, printed at 100%. This is printed at 60%. I have created separate files for the mini version for you as well. So rather than having to print the original pattern at the 60% size, there is another file uploaded for both the regular version that doesn't have the seam on the bottom and also the directional pieces, so that this is what the pattern pieces look like in that file. So we're going to go ahead and do that today. You will need the same type of supplies as for the full-size one. I have my vinyl. I have a zipper with a pull. I am using a size 3 zipper. For this version, I like to just use a single pull. I use 3/4 of an inch for my swivel hook. This is an optional thing you can do if you wanted to put a jelly band on. I just use a split ring to attach that to this part of the swivel hook, if that's something that you wanted to do. You'll need your cutting implements. You will need stapler and something to remove your staples, your lighter, your freight check, usual clips, pattern weights, double-sided tape that I love ever so much, obviously your pattern piece. As I said, I like to use size 3 zippers. I know not everybody has size 3 zippers. This is cut at 12 inches. If you were going to use a size 5, you can do it. Just take a slightly bigger seam allowance when you're sewing. But I just wanted to show you that you can see a lot of the zipper tape if you're using clear vinyl. If you're using a solid vinyl, then it would be totally fine. For me personally, I don't love seeing this much of the zipper tape on such a small pouch, so I am going to be using the size 3s for mine. Today I'm using the solid, so I guess it wouldn't have mattered anyway, but that's just the way I've been doing it. If you have like a fun printed zipper tape, I mean, maybe it would be great to have it in the size 5. I just find this zipper size is a little too big, but I know that a lot of people only keep size 5s. I don't use size 3s for really anything other than my interior zipper pockets on bags that I make, but I have found for this particular pouch, the size 3 is my preferred size. But if you want to use 5, you can certainly do it. It just is a little big. I just whipped this one up really quickly the other day just to see how it looks with the bigger tape. And it's just personal preference, I guess, what you want to do. So let's get started. First up, we need to cut out our pattern piece. This is a good size for using up scraps. The size is about 7 by 7 inches. That is enough for your pattern, your main pattern piece. And then also you will cut out a piece that is 2 inches long by the width of your swivel hook. So I use 2 inches by 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out my piece. It doesn't fit there, but it will fit up here. So let me get that cut out. As you may know by now, I'm pretty big on trying to use up the scraps from my cutting in the remainder of my project. So even though this piece is not quite 2 inches, I am still going to use this to cut my swivel ring connector tab. So I'm going to trim that down. I'm going to use the longest section that I can get a straight cut on, and it will be just under 2 inches. But we're only taking a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance in this scaled down version. So that will be totally fine if it's a little less than 2 inches. So it'll end up being just under 1 3/4 of an inch, and that will work just fine. So I've got this there for my swivel, this piece ready to go. So if you're putting a tag on, you can go ahead and do that. I like to place my tag around here on the little versions. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that on, and then I will be back to do the next step with you. We need to mark our centers so that we can get our zipper tape applied to our bag. So I'm going to mark the center top and center bottom, and I'm also going to mark the centers down here for when we are lining up our boxed bottom. With the little tiny pouches, it just seems a little easier to get it done ahead of time. Just my little snips in there. I'm then going to put the snips in my zipper tape, folding it in half, checking to see which end is the further out, and putting a little snip in the tape. Same on the other end. You can use a pre-made zipper for this. 12 inches of actual teeth would be enough. You just would apply it from one end, leaving a longer tail. The tail at the end where your zipper is, the closed end of your zipper, not the open end of your zipper. Marking the center. Because this is a smaller scale, we are going to start our snips only about 1.5 inches down and go for about the same. So on the full size, we do 2.5, 2.5. So on the smaller one, 1.5 inches, 1.5. Being careful not to snip too far into your zipper tape. Repeat that on the other side so that you've got the snips for each of your 4 curves. One more. Zipper's ready to go. Grab your double-sided tape. I'm going to apply it around, whoops, that's lost its sticky. I'm going to apply that around the top curve and around the bottom curve, and then we're going to stick on our zippers. If you are using anything other than the one solid piece or a different zipper configuration to that which I'm doing in this tutorial, check out the full-size Logi pouch videos for each of those variations. You would do it exactly the same way, it's just a smaller size. Other than that, you would do it the same way. I haven't made a lined version of this. I feel as though the bound one would be fine. The turned version, I think it's just a little too small. I'm not sure how well it would work and how much actual usable space it would have on the inside. These are a great size for fitting cards in, your chapstick, a couple of keys. Anything smaller and a card may not fit, like an ID card or a credit card may not fit in there. If you are keeping ID or credit cards in there, I would recommend not using clear vinyl. I am making these for my kids to put on their backpacks to keep little things in that they need to keep handy. They take in $1 on Fridays to get ice cream, or if they need a chapstick or something during school. That's the kinds of things that I want to put in their pouches. So we just get that tape applied. Then we're going to go over to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew this zipper tape on with a smaller seam allowance of about 1/4 inch because it is the narrower zipper tape. If you are using size 5 zipper tape, you can get a lot closer to the teeth. Just make sure that you're not catching the teeth in your stitches and there's still room for you to zip and unzip the pouch. So I'm going to head over to the machine now. The next step is to clip our corners and trim our threads. We will then go back over to the machine and top stitch the zipper. This comes together really, really quickly. So it's nice how quickly it comes together. do like to put my snip close to the peak of the corner if I can. It just helps the little zipper corner to sit under as neatly as possible. Now just applying my freight check to the points of those snips and anywhere else in that zipper that we have snipped so that it doesn't fray. And now we will go over to the machine. We're going to be folding the zipper tape under and stitching along the edge. The next thing for us to do is to attach our swivel hook. You need to decide if you've put a tag on which side you want your hook to be on. If you have a non-directional print and no tag, then it doesn't matter. I like to have my hook on this side when my tag is here. The tag would then be on the front, if that's the way my brain sees it. But I am right-handed, so I'm going to flip it around this way to attach the swivel hook here. This piece is 1 3/4 inches long. As you remember, we cut it out of this bit here. You might have a different piece that is 2 inches long. What you're going to do is grab some double-sided tape, pop it on the end there, peel that off, slide on your swivel hook, and press that closed. I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance for sewing this box corner here. So I like to have my swivel with about 1/2 inch on the vinyl there. So for me, that puts me at 1/4 inch hanging off. If your connector is longer, you will have more overhang there. So I also like to put a little bit of double-sided tape at the end there to hold that in place. You could staple it, or you could just see what happens. I like to place my exterior piece on my cutting mat lined up so that I can see where my swivel goes to be in the middle. So I place it so that the center marking that I've already done is in the middle of what would be a 3/4 inch section there, so that I can line it up using the grid on my cutting mat. So I'm just going to get a little bit of double-sided tape here because it's just a little skinny bit that we're attaching. Don't put it in the overhang, Nicole. All right. Then it's gonna hang over by 1/4 inch, and using my grid, it should be in the middle. And that looks okay. I can double check it. Let's see if it needs to be repositioned at all. I gotta get it in a good spot. No, whoops, it wiggled. All right, just move it over a little bit. Okay, press that down. I'm gonna go over to the machine. I'm just going to baste that in place. Our swivel hook is now basted in place here. I just did a couple of long stitches within the seam allowance here. The next thing to do is to slide on our zipper pull. I find size 3s a fair bit trickier than sliding on size 5s, but I do the same technique. Slide it on from the side that is further out, and then feed it through, push it on. Come on. Come on. There we go. Okay, what I like to do here is pull it all the way through so that that is completely closed. Then I will slide it back on again. And that just closes up that end for me, which makes boxing the corners a little easier. So just go through that process again, slide it back on, make sure that it's even. Yep, slide it up to the middle. I slide it to about the curve there and then slide it back. When you turn this, because it is so much smaller than the other version, this may try to slide off. So I'm going to grab a couple of clips here. To just keep that so that the pull, so that the tape doesn't open up that way. And a couple on this side so the pull doesn't slide off. Okay, and then I'm going to open it a little more. I'm just going to turn it inside out so we can box those corners. Oh, still did it. Well, bugger. Okay, so what we can do then is practice getting our pulls on. So I'm going to unclip this while it's inside out. I'm going to pull this through again, all the way to the end. And now I'm going to put it on upside down in this little section here. If you hold it the right way, it's not too bad doing it when it's inside out. Okay, we got it back on. Okay, so slide that up to the middle. I don't find it too bad to open these from the reverse, so I'm not too worried about the size of the gap. Now what we need to do is the center that we marked earlier, we're lining up with the center of our zipper. The edge here should line up. Sometimes just through the process of making the bag, it slides a little bit. It should be pretty close. It's supposed to be correct. Grab your stapler or clips, stapling inside the seam allowance there. Oh, that's a little imperfect. I'm going to just take that staple out so that my zipper is flat. Just pop that out. Make sure the zipper is flat there. Staple again. And then at the other end, you've got a little bit more in the way of layers here, and it's also a little harder to see where the center is. But if you look, you can see your marking there lining up with that zipper, and you just have that overhang from your tab. So sliding it up, edges of your corners lining up, staple in, staple the other side. Oh, this is a little fiddly because it's just that little bit smaller. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew along here at 1/4 inch, and then just inside the seam allowance again to reinforce it, and the same on the other side. When you're sewing this side, you need to be wary of your swivel that's right here underneath the vinyl. If you need to switch to your zipper foot, you can certainly do that, or use a hump jumper to get over the extra bulk there. Just take it nice and slowly over where your swivel connector tab is too. Oops, thread's tangled. And then one more line of stitching. I'm actually going to do this one outside because that was a little closer to the edge than I wanted it to be. Now you can reinforce over this pull too. These pouches are so small, they're not going to be holding a lot of weight. It's not like when you're doing a heavy bag. so we've got our 2 lines of stitching reinforced here. I'm going to go and pull out those staples, trim all these threads, and then we'll see how it looks. Before we turn this out, I'm going to trim my zipper ends, and then I'm going to melt them. I like to leave that tab there without trimming it. You could trim it. I prefer to leave it so that it's less likely to pull out. A little bit of extra length just seems to help. I'm just going to melt these ends down. Okay, and now we're going to turn this out. As always, using my thumb to push on the corners to get them nice and crisp. And there you see, we have the little baby Logi. If you want to, you can attach your split ring in this little jelly band thing, something like this. I always find these things a little tricky to get on. You can pop that through, or you can make a wristlet strap if you really wanted to. I do have videos on the channel on how to make a wristlet strap, but there you go. And then you can hang it from your wrist. This vinyl is a little softer than some of the other printed vinyls that I have, but it still has enough structure for this purpose. So you can put in whatever you want. Oh, look, I got a glasses cleaning cloth. You can pop that in there. I'm sure I've got a chapstick lying around. You can stick a card in there. And just whatever you need to keep handy, you can just pop it in there. This is about the size of a business card. Let me just grab one so we can see. All right, so a couple of cards. You can see it's just the right size to put in the bottom there. Zip it up. And they just sit in the bottom. If you angle them, then they won't poke out like that on the side, but like that, they fit in really well. I think anything bigger would be too big, anything smaller, they wouldn't fit. So the 60% seems to be the sweet spot, at least in my opinion. So you can just fit your essentials in there and you're good to go. So I hope that that tutorial was helpful for you. I think that's about it for the Logi Pouch tutorials. I'm sure that I'll think of something else to make a video on soon enough, but I hope that you have enjoyed this series of videos, and I would love to see your Logi pouches that you've made. Thanks everyone, have a great day.